I just popped down here to get something and I'm presented with this absolute mess. And of course, these bikes are in the way, so I can't reach the wood underneath, which is what I came in for. So I'm going to tidy all of this away and put the bikes back up so that I can access the wood. Okay, that's a tiny bit better. At least the bikes are out the way. What I came down here for was to find, I have some pieces of wood that are square that I thought would be good to hang the shelves on. Ah, there they are. This is the perfect size for me to use to screw into the wall, and the shelf will rest on top of this. Fighting with me. I'm going to cut them on my mitre saw after I've cleared all this mess away. Just noticed that I have these very thin pieces of board here. These will be perfect to go on the bottom of the shelf. So we'll have on the top this thick wood. And then on the bottom, these thin pieces. I don't know if I'll quite have enough, but I guess we'll see how we get on. It's nice to not have to go out and buy anything. The total depth of these shelves is 39. That means that these pieces of wood that I will be using to support the shelves must be 39 centimetres minus whatever the depth is of the piece of wood that I will put on the front. And I think I will put a piece of this on the front of the shelf so that you can't see the joins and the bits behind. So let me measure this and I'll minus that off of 39 and that will tell me how long that needs to be. Okay, so it's like 8 millimeters. So this needs to be 39 minus 8 millimeters. Let me get a pencil. When I line it up, I'm going to be putting it just left of the blade because then it cuts there and the true length is left. If I put that little line in the middle, it would cut a couple of millimeters into the length that I want to keep. So this is the bit I want to keep, therefore the little line is left of the blade. Lovely clean, I mean apart from that little tiny bit. Lovely clean cuts. The width of the back is 59. And these two bits have already been cut to go directly into the wall, therefore it needs to be 59 minus whatever width this is. So let's measure this. 3.5 centimetres. So, brain hurting. 55.5 centimetres. Measure twice, cut once. Have you seen my pen? Have you seen my pen? These are the 3 bits that are supposed to fit. Let's go see if they fit. Don't let me forget the pizza in the oven because I don't want to burn it again like last time. Luckily, since I've already wedged this shelf in here, it'll give me something to rest these on to check if they fit. Teeny tiny bit too snug, but that's okay. I'll literally just take a couple of millimeters off there and then it'll fit fine. So this gives me an even better opportunity to show you exactly what it is that I'm going to be doing. This piece of wood will be on top and it will rest on these. These I'm going to screw into the plasterboard, and then once this is rested on top of these, I'll get a piece of that plyboard and that'll go on the underneath so that it doesn't look exposed like this one does right now. And then when all that's done, I will be adding a piece of board to the front to cover all of those joins and to make it look flush. I'll then fill in the gaps and it'll be ready to use this as a shelf. I wasn't really sure how this was going to come together, but I watched a couple more videos on YouTube and it gave me a little bit more confidence that I was doing something that wasn't completely nuts. So feeling good about this shelf so far. Once I've got this one down, the rest should be easier to follow. As I mentioned yesterday, I was giving myself a really hard time for having not made much progress on this shelf. but I wasn't feeling very well. And it's okay to not make progress every single day. I look at this now and I'm like, oh wow, I have made a lot of progress. The shelf is already nearly in. I already know where I'm going to put the rest of the shelves. I did a lot yesterday, and sometimes that doesn't result in a physical thing, and that is okay. Keep going. Just keep going. Oh my god, the pizza. I feel like in these videos I'm exposing how much pizza I really eat. It's nice. There we have one shelf that fits. That little gap there I'll just fill with filler at the end. But it fits quite nicely. It's not quite straight because it's just balanced in there. Haha. Like I said, it was balanced. One piece for the top and one piece for the bottom. They are exactly the same shape and size. The next thing that I'm going to do is to drill through these pieces of wood in various locations. And what I will do is I will use those holes to work out where on the wall I need to drill through. Push the nails through and it will leave a little mark on the wall. And so I'll know that's where I need to put the plasterboard screw, because I'll have to put plasterboard screws so these are supported. But I can't do that bit yet. And the reason I can't do it yet is because I cannot find the bit that I need to make those holes, because my workshop is such a mess. So I am pausing this project because I just have to tidy up. The bits that I need are somewhere in one of these boxes, and I've scoured through them and I just can't find what I'm looking for. When it gets to this sort of stage in the project where I stop being able to find the things that I need, I notice that I start to cut corners. I don't like it. I don't like how that makes me feel. So I'm actually going to tidy this space. Before I can tidy this space, I need to have somewhere that I can put the tools. The reason that they're all in those boxes and not in here where they should be is because all this plasterboard's in the way. The plasterboard's in the way because I had to clear this room so that I could level the floor. But I didn't level the floor because I paused this project in May last year. So since May last year, I have had this problem with being able to store stuff. And I guess if I'd have realised I was taking such a long break, I might have actually resolved this a little bit sooner. I'm going to bring that plasterboard in here temporarily, store the tools, and then hopefully I can find what I'm looking for and I can continue with this. Do you think I'm going to get this shelf done today? So things have escalated somewhat. I didn't find the bits that I needed, and so now I am organising all of my screws into pots. It's probably quite likely actually that the bits I need are stored somewhere in here, so I'm going to look through here next. This is the bit that I'm laughing because just as I started to film, my cleaner turned the vacuum on. This is the bit that I was looking for. It drills a hole through the wood and then it makes a little divot for the screw head to go into. And I went in just enough so that there'll be space for the screw head to sit. I'm going to do 2 in these. Here I'm simply making sure that it's level before I begin. You'll also see I've drawn in pencil on the wall where I want them to go. This just helps me remember. You won't be able to see it once the shelves are up. I'm drilling through the holes directly into the plasterboard to mark where the plasterboard plugs need to go. You'll have to excuse the mess of my plasterboard plugs. I salvaged these from a different project. I don't like to waste things, but it does mean they look a little bit funny. I always choose to ever so slightly pre-drill if I'm going to use plasterboard plugs. This is because I find that they tend to chip off the plaster quite easily, and doing this makes it less likely that it will happen. Saying that, it did happen. The piece of wood I'm using is quite thick, so I picked up some slightly longer screws. One of my top tips for installing a piece of wood like this is make sure you draw an arrow on it. If you turn it upside down, the holes won't be in the same place. I usually also mark a number on the piece so that I don't get them mixed up with another bit. It's a whole world of pain if these get mixed up. I'm trying to screw this in while standing behind the camera and the tripod, and it was so difficult. But the screws went in really nicely. It was a really tidy finish, and the piece of wood was super robust on there. I can't tell you how chuffed I was when I finally put the top piece and the bottom piece on, and they both fit. I also have a confession. I was so proud of myself that I turned to my cleaner who was there at the time and I said, "I made a shelf." And she was kind enough to humour me with an "oh." To secure the top of the board, I'm going to drill some pilot holes and then screw in a very slim screw. In an ideal world, I would just use a nail gun for this, but I don't have one. It didn't go in quite as deep as I wanted, so I had another go. And when I did this, it chipped the wood a little bit, but oh well. Now, I have to ask, have any of you ever used your head? What I mean is, have you ever used it to try and keep something up whilst you screw something in place? This was a lot more fiddly than I thought it would be. It's now time to cut the final piece, which was 5.5 centimeters wide. I thought I would do this with my Craig tool because you can cut a very straight line. I set it up to cut a strip at 5.5 centimeters, and it was perfect! Rather than screws, I am actually going to use some nails on this. I'm just going to do it by hand, and I picked the ones that have a slightly smaller head on them so that they're less noticeable once they have been hammered in. The final part of this shelf was to add some filler. This can be used on wood, but I didn't like how it was coming out, so I stopped using this and instead used some wood filler. I always feel like the texture of this just comes out nicer. I also filled in the edges. Once this is all dry, I will still need to sand it down to get rid of all of the excess material. But after I've done that, I'll be able to paint it. If this was a fun watch for you today, I'd love it if you considered subscribing. See you tomorrow!